Podcasts are pretty common. So what makes the Uncommon podcast uncommon? Well, it's all in our name. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and we at Uncommon Sports Group understand the unique pressures and temptations that come with a career in the sport industry. We provide uncommon training that helps you successfully navigate common challenges. Hit the follow button on this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Check out our website and become uncommon. What's going on, USG fam? Welcome back to another episode of the Uncommon Podcast. I'm excited to welcome Uncommon Sports Group, formerly Managers on a Mission, veteran and University of Houston, Assistant Athletics Director for Equipment Operations, Andrew Johnson, onto the podcast today. Andrew began his journey in the equipment room as a student equipment manager during his undergraduate years at Oklahoma State University and has since served as an equipment manager in the NFL with the New York Jets for 4 seasons and as the Director of Equipment Operations at Texas State University for 5 seasons before his recent transition to his role with the University of Houston. Andrew got involved with Managers on a Mission in 2017 when he traveled to Mazuzu, Malawi on a mission trip, and recently Andrew joined Uncommon Sports Group on another international trip to Israel. Andrew, thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Glad to be here. Glad to be able to spend some time with you and talk today.
Absolutely, brother. And, Andrew, I mentioned this in the intro. I think a cool part of your story is you have been in the equipment room since your undergrad years at OSU as a Cowboy, as a football student equipment manager. So to share with me, what led you to pursue a career in the equipment room full-time after that initial experience?
So a lot of people don't know about my initial background. I actually started in athletic training in junior college, so I got a shout out. Tyler Junior College, they got a lot of publicity with Jimmy Butler in the finals this year and stuff like that. But so I actually started out in the support staff industry in athletic training, and I call it my discount degree. I got my associates in athletic training from there, and then transferred to Oklahoma State. But at the time that I transferred, they were kind of changing how the program was set up between undergrad and graduate, and just kind of missed that opportunity. And my dad and Coach Gundy knew each other, so Coach Gundy got me a volunteer spot in the equipment room at Oklahoma State, and kind of just went in, head down, grinding, and worked into a paid position, and ended up liking it more than athletic training, and ended up sticking with that, and became a student manager there, and the rest is history.
That's awesome, Andrew. I did not know that you were in athletic training, so that's a little fun fact that I did not know. So that's good to hear that. And Andrew, I think what's cool is after your experience as an undergraduate equipment manager, you spent 4 seasons in the NFL with the New York Jets. That's no small thing, as both a seasonal equipment manager and as an equipment assistant. So my question is, how did you stand out in that hiring process for that initial position? I know there's only so many equipment rooms in the NFL, so many positions. How did you stand out? And then what was the biggest difference between college and professional in terms of the equipment operation?
So just to talk a little bit about that process, like I said, 32 teams, not all teams bring in interns, so it is a very selective process. And I found out how selective it was after I joined the staff, and we were picking interns and stuff like that. But I would say talking to the people when I was there about kind of what stood out with my resume is I followed up my email resume with an actual physical copy, in a binder, all this stuff that I sent in to them. So they kind of just said that stood out against the crowd. Nobody else had done that year. So mine was one of the ones that they had taken and put to the side and was like, we want to bring this guy here. So shout out Brendan Berger out at the LA Rams. He was actually the one who first brought me up there. Him, Jim, Gus, those guys at the Jets. So a big thank you to them. But, once again, just got there, worked hard as a training camp intern, came back to Oklahoma State, graduated, and they called me back to come be a seasonal. And same thing, had my first year with Rex Ryan as head coach, and then second year Coach Bowles came in, and obviously people just recognize when you do a good job and stuff like that, and they ended up promoting me to a full-time position. So really blessed to be in the right place at the right time, but also with a good group of people that allowed me to stay on staff.
Absolutely, Andrew. And I think that's really cool to even hear that they called you back. Obviously, I think out of all the jobs in sports, equipment is the one where it's more effort based is how you kind of get noticed, right? So putting in the hours, making sure you're doing your best work, and really, I think just not saying no to the opportunities and tasks that you're given. So I think that's a huge part of it. And kind of I think a unique aspect of your journey is you have been in both the college and in the professional world. How would you compare those two, just considering the difference between the magnitude of the athletes you work with, right? You're working with millionaires and you're working with college students. How does that differ in terms of your role as an equipment manager?
Yeah, so it's been kind of a roller coaster back and forth. Obviously, when I first got to the NFL, I recognized how much of a business it truly was, because you could be talking to a guy, 1 minute, and 10 minutes later he's cut or traded, and it doesn't matter how good he is. It's just, a guy might get cut because we had a receiver go down and they need a new receiver. So now this D lineman or this running back's got to go. So definitely open your eyes to how much of a business it was in a numbers game. But comparable to college, now with NIL and stuff like that, like the college game is changing. It's becoming more of a professional game with the players and them being able to, get deals and stuff like that. And it's almost like free agency, which is it's just hilarious. But, the main difference is, in the NFL, like I said, it's a business. You got grown men coming in. They're doing a job. Everybody always asks, what's it like being around the guys? And it's truly, most of them are down to earth. You don't have problems out of them. The millionaires act just like the guys that are on practice squad. In this profession, you learn to deal with a lot of different personalities and stuff like that. So you're always going to have your guys that you got to treat a little bit different versus the other ones. But that main difference between college and NFL is, in the college game, a little more so in the older days than now, because with the transfer portal, people go anywhere. You'd see an 18-year-old kid walk in the door, and 4 or 5 years later, you see a man leave, with a degree and stuff like that. So I'd say the connection and kind of like the person building aspect of college is a little different than the NFL, because that kind of progressed in who they are as a person and stuff like that at that age, rather than a freshman coming into college.
Yeah, that's well said, Andrew. And I think that's a big difference, right, between the business side of the NFL and just how expendable players are. I think that's a tough part, working in a relational industry like the sports world. But even that college side, where you get typically 4 years with a guy and get to see them mature and be a part of that journey. So I think that's a good way to describe it, right? A business, and then more so of being a part of development of 4 years of watching a guy come through. Andrew, I think too, a tough part about equipment is obviously nobody wakes up knowing everything about the responsibilities, right? There's a lot that goes into it, a lot that I don't know, a lot that you do know, obviously being in the role you're in. So how were you able, for the young professionals listening that are desiring to work in that, how were you able to learn the responsibilities that came with that role and to do it with excellence?
I would say that it's a evolving game, evolving knowledge, stuff like that. Some of the people that taught me the equipment that I know, mainly my guys at Oklahoma State, Wes, Justin, Chief, they'll forget more about equipment than I'll ever know. But, just always being willing to listen and learn, and it's hard for us sometimes to accept the fact that we don't know everything. I'm definitely one of those people. Like, I like to feel like I got it all figured out and I know what's going on and I know how to handle it. But I would just say, in being a sponge, like take advice, be able to look, listen, learn, reach out to other people, ask questions. There's a lot of people in this profession that are willing to help and want to see people succeed. So I would just say your willingness to learn and accept criticism and critique. Like, people don't like to be told what's wrong sometimes, but at the end of the day, a lot of times it'll help you if you just accept it. So I'd say that's the biggest part of it.
That's well said, Andrew. And really, I think out of any job in sports, maybe any job ever, I think being an equipment manager takes a lot of humility because it's service. At the end of the day, it's service, and it's learning, and it's being a part of a larger organization that is achieving a goal. You're a part of that, right? But to your point, being willing to take criticism, being willing to be wrong, and then being willing to serve are things that come to my mind, at least, of it's a job of humility. So I love that about it, though. I think that's what makes it unique. It is a job of humility with a lot of reward in that. So thanks for sharing.
With that, though, you also have to know what you know, and when people challenge you on it, if you know truly that, you know what you're talking about and you're in your field, then that's a big part of it too. So
absolutely,
it's just being present and on top of your game, as I call it.
Absolutely, being confident in who you are and what you know. That's well said. And Andrew, I kind of want to shift here to your faith. Obviously, you've been involved with Uncommon Sports Group since 2017, as I mentioned. And during your 4 years with the Jets, you did go on a summer mission trip to Malawi with managers on a mission at the time. We'd love to hear from you. What was the impact of that experience on your personal relationship with Christ? And then how did you bring that experience back into the equipment room the next season?
I would say that's probably one of the most life-changing events I've been a part of. Getting to meet those kids over there, and just, I grew up in the church. My dad's a pastor. My mom's a church musician. Been around church my whole life. And those kids could run circles around me in Bible knowledge, scripture knowledge, their ability to pray. It's some of the best prayers I've ever heard in my life. And it's just amazing to see like how God works through, those kids and stuff like that. And we went there thinking we were going to have such an impact on them. And, we left impacted, by the kids. So just a great experience. Really makes you appreciate what we have and the ability to go over there and witness to them, but also be witnessed to from them as well. So just a huge thank you to Uncommon Sports Group. At that time, Managers on a Mission, Drew Bowe and his vision. I always mention that anytime I talk about USG because he's created a platform that has touched a lot of people in this industry and now even outside of equipment, in the sports industry in general, and reaching around the world to impact people's lives.
Amen. That's awesome, Andrew. And I think I love what you said, because I think we can take that mindset into so many international trips of, I'm going to change these people and I'm going to have such an impact. And it's totally true. Like, part of the reason why we do these international trips is because it does impact that local community in a lot of different ways. But I think even more so, to your point, it impacts you, and it helps you grow in your relationship with Christ and even just your understanding of the challenges that people across the globe are facing. Oftentimes they're even more so than what we face here. So thank you for sharing that. And I think the hard part of any mission trip is taking it back to where you're working, because you get back into the grind, especially in equipment of, man, you're in there all season and it's a busy time. How did you keep what you took from that Malawi trip and apply it to what you were doing with the Jets that next season?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing that I learned was patience. In our industry, we're on a tight schedule. We got, from the time the clock hits 0 to the time the bus is rolling on your way to the airport, you got about 60 minutes to get off the field, get all the player stuff packed, all the truck packed, and get out of there. So I noticed the difference in just like my overall personality with, control what you can control, which, going to Africa teach you that their sense of time and our sense of time are totally different. So control what you can control. And like I said, just taking that patience and paying attention. It lets you pay attention to detail and stuff like that. So things where you wouldn't think it would help you in your job, it's actually helping you because you're seeing the little stuff because you're taking the time to pay attention to detail and stuff like that. But I would just say overall, just the feeling of gratefulness, like I said, for what we have, and just like the ability to work on that grand stage of the NFL. Like, I mean, tons of people out there in the world that I know would love to do that, and being one of the people that were blessed enough to get that opportunity, going on that trip just made me appreciate it even more because I know some of those kids and stuff like that had dreams of being pro athletes and just getting out of their situation. So it just gave you a good viewpoint into other parts of the world and how blessed you truly are.
I love that, Andrew. It's a great reflection. And, I love what you said too of how hectic sports can be. And you mentioned, getting off the field in 60 minutes and how that kind of gave you a sense of, control what you can control. Don't get so caught up in these things that we like see as so important. At the end of the day, it is important, right? Do your job well, but the world's not going to end, right? If it's 61 minutes and not 60. So there's a value, I think, to having that perspective. So love to hear that impact. I think that's the heartbeat of what we do is not just giving you that experience, but that it would allow you to do your job better when you go back. It's well said. And Andrew, back to your career story. In 2018, you accepted a position with Texas State University as the head equipment manager for the football program. What led you to want to get involved at the collegiate level once again, and how did you prepare yourself for a leadership position?
Well, it wasn't much preparing. I kind of just jumped in feet first. I reported there like March 16th. That was a Friday, and we started spring ball that following Monday.
Wow.
But just the decision to go there, I will say it was tough to leave, the NFL to take a step back and go down to the college level. But for me, I wanted to build myself career-wise and learn and stuff like that. And, at the Jets, I was, the third assistant. So I wasn't really in the ordering and dealing with budgets and stuff like that. So I knew if I ever wanted to run my own equipment room at the NFL level or, P5 level, I was going to have to get that experience at some point. So Texas State just so happened to work out to where it was a good opportunity. It wasn't far from home. Back in my home state, our director of football ops there at the time was the former equipment guy, Zach Lucas. He was a student manager with me at Oklahoma State. So we knew each other. So I had that support system. And the assistant there was also a student with us at Oklahoma State. So I knew for that to be my first head job, I had a good support network around me, and it was a good place to go learn.
Absolutely, Andrew. I love that, how you kind of thought of your end, right, of what you wanted to end up doing as you took that position. I think that's just wise working in sports and great advice for our listeners of as you kind of process opportunities, think about how this could benefit you, what your end goal is, right? And you thought through, working with former individuals you were working with at Oklahoma State, that support system, and then also getting that experience with the head job there that would hopefully benefit you to be where you are now, right, Power 5, and as well as get back into the NFL. So well said on that front. And, Andrew, you were eventually promoted to the director of equipment ops position at Texas State University. And I think so many times young people can struggle to know how to get promotions or what to really do. And maybe this answer is more obvious than we think, but how did you set yourself up to receive that promotion? And do you have any advice for our listeners on how they can get promotions in their current roles?
Yeah, so with us, it was mainly a fact of, wanting to build the department and grow as a athletic department, but also as an equipment room. And we kind of restructured some things, and we made some hires at assistant that allowed us to change some titles and stuff like that. But, like I said before, it's all about just keeping your head down, working hard, doing your job, proving your worth to people. This is a thankless profession. A lot of times you don't get much attention unless something has gone wrong. So you just know to keep your head down, do your job, and the right people are looking, the right people notice, and that type of stuff is rewarded. But I would say, don't be scared to reach out to your supervisor, and if you know you're doing a good job, and you see things that can change and be better within your organization, speak up,
Mm-hmm.
because they might just not be seeing the little things that are there.
Yeah.
Like I said, we restructured the department, got uh, higher salaries for assistants, and made assistant positions that were intern positions before.
Mm.
And it just took a conversation of, hey, this is where we're at. This is where we need to be. This is where I'd like to be.
Mm.
Let's look into this.
Yeah.
But with that, like I said, you have to carry that weight of them trusting you and knowing that
Mm.
you're doing what's best for them, what's
Yeah.
best for you, what's best for the department. And so they have to believe in you as a worker and stuff like that. So it's all about just putting all the building blocks together, and having those conversations.
Mm. I love what you said on proving your worth. I think that's so important, right? You don't just get a promotion one day because you just get a promotion, right? There's an element of proving yourself, and obviously, like as a Christian, right, and as a someone who's following Jesus, you don't want to be too caught up in that. Our worth is in Christ, but I do think there's so much value in trying to prove to people that you are worth that promotion, worth that position. So yeah, I think that's so well said, and a really, really solid takeaway for our listeners of put your head down, right? Work for it. And that's a huge part of any job in sports. And definitely would agree that equipment is thankless many times. Super important job. It's more important than many people realize, but definitely can be thankless at times. And Andrew, what's awesome about your story, you just mentioned that you want to be at the Power 5 level, and you recently accepted a position at the University of Houston, Big 12 school, now as an assistant athletics director for equipment operations. How did you know that this position was the right one for you and that it was time to leave Texas State?
I'm a big proponent of, I'm a buzzword guy. So, bloom where you plant it. And,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like from the time I got to Texas State to the point at which I left it, me and the department had done some really good things. And, I just felt like I was ready to take that next step.
Mm-hmm.
So, when this opportunity came about, just prayed about it. I prayed about leaving the Jets and going to Texas State. And no matter the job or where I'm going, I always pray that, whatever the decision may be, and if I get the job, hopefully it will help whoever the new person is that's looking for a job elsewhere to get my old job. And if I don't get the new job, then, good luck and prayers for the person that ends up getting it.
Yeah.
So I always pray that, I wanted to help a person, or, to comfort me and help the new person. So, that's just a part of it. But like I said, I knew it was time to make that next step again. Like at Texas State, I was, director of equipment operations, but there I still only really handled football. So I knew it was time to check off that next box and take that next step. And once again, Houston, a little bit closer to home, so not too far from family. And with the move to them going to the Big 12, it was just a good opportunity for me. And all the guys that I knew from the Big 12 when I was a student that are directors and stuff like that welcome me with open arms. So it's been really good.
That's awesome, Andrew. I love what you said on praying through the opportunity. That's hard to do, especially when it's tempting and it's like a job you really want. To go to the Lord in that and humbly ask for his permission, or even just open that door, that's a hard thing to do. So kudos to you for going to the Lord in that. And then I think, too, just being wise to realize it was time for that next step, right? You got to know what you want out of your career journey. Sometimes it's just like, I like where I'm at, and that's good. And sometimes it's I'm ready to make that next step. So a lot of wisdom in what you said. And for our listeners, to really be intentional on considering what you want out of your career, what that next step should be, and when the right timing is, right? Maybe the time isn't right. It's not the perfect job. It's okay to be patient as well. So thanks for sharing on that.
For sure. And I tell people all the time, like, the grass isn't always greener. Like, you can't jump on the first thing you hear. And there was other opportunities I had during Texas State that just weren't right for me. Like I said, whether that's the divine intervention of prayer and him sending some type of message like, hey, this isn't what you want, or this isn't for you. But yeah, just be confident in yourself and your abilities. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell a lot of people, don't get pigeonholed into one area. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to look at opportunities, because you know you can get complacent and comfortable in a place, but that place can also get complacent and comfortable with you and
Yeah.
kind of lose your value and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
you always want to keep that in mind, and just, it's a business where we have to look out for ourselves. Like, nobody
Yeah.
wants to say that, but that is the case. Like, especially
100%.
when you want to take steps and stuff like that. So I would just say, be careful. With getting comfortable. Like,
Mm.
you don't ever want to get too comfortable. A guy once told me our comfort zone and our construction zone are two different area codes. So you got
100%.
to step out of your little bubble and your surroundings sometime to grow and take that next step.
100%. I love that quote. It's so true. I mean, especially, I think when you're in the equipment room, I mean, I've never been in one, Andrew, so I might be talking in a wrong direction here, but I think it could be probably pretty easy to get comfortable because you're so busy. You don't have time to think about anything else, or how to think about your value and what else you might be looking for. So yeah, to step out of that comfort zone into that construction zone is easier said than done. So thanks for sharing that. And I think your story is a testament to doing that, obviously, with the transitions that you've been through.
I'll keep you in mind next intern spot I got open. We'll get you in the equipment world.
Please do. I'm not sure how Drew would feel, but please do. And Andrew, I talked about Malawi, obviously, as your first trip with Managers on a Mission / Uncommon Sports Crew back in 2017. But just a few weeks ago, you returned from another international trip with USG to Israel. Talk to us about the impact of that experience in the Holy Land and how the Lord used it to help you grow in your walk with Christ.
Yeah, I mean, that trip was amazing. I'd say it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'd love to go back at some point. But just I feel like everybody that went on that trip grew internally and personally and stuff like that. And we were a very good group. Everybody meshed together well. Where somebody had deficits, somebody else excelled in that area, and we kind of just picked up the slack, and it was chaos and poetry in motion, working with the camp kids and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, it was just amazing. I'll say that. But as far as me personally, just being able to see and connect with the things you've read your whole life and heard your whole life just has a whole different feeling when you're looking at it. It's hard to explain, but it's just one of those deals where you feel it. And so going to the different sites and I will say, everywhere in the Bible where it says mount this, mount that, it is truly a mountain, because we were walking uphill all day, every day. I think our biggest day was 7.2 miles, 29 flights, and 15,000 steps.
Man.
So we definitely
work.
got it in all the terrain and stuff. But just seeing all those different places, and Sahar, our tour guide, was amazing. I mean, when we went to these places, he's got his Bible open, he's reading. So just basically just bringing the whole picture to life right there in front of you. A couple times we worshiped in some of the areas. One of our guys brought guitar and led worship in some of the spots. So it was just a really good time.
It's so amazing just how unique Israel is because of the biblical roots that it has. And just, as you said, being able to read the scripture exactly where the scripture happened, I mean, that's like once in a lifetime for sure.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing on that. And kind of a follow-up question. You've been to Malawi, which is obviously very different than Israel. How did those two trips compare in your mind?
It's hard to compare the two. It's two totally different places.
Yeah, totally.
Malawi is a very, very poor nation. So, I mean, there wasn't much structure beyond, a couple stores in the town, the open air market. The Rafiki village we stayed at was amazing, but just on the other side of the walls, you see the huts and stuff that you see, on TV, versus Israel, where it's not third world country, stuff like that. So it's much more commercialized and that stuff. So I would say we spent a lot more time with the kids, and it was a little bit longer trip in Malawi. So,
Mm-hmm.
you connected to the kids more and made those personal connections there. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel like in the Israel group, we connected more with our group
Mm.
and kind of made connections amongst each other and learned from each other. And like I said, just kind of flowed and picked up where somebody else might have left off, and it just all worked very well.
That's awesome, Andrew. Thanks for sharing on that. And I think for our listeners too, there are some places, right, that have such a different environment, right? Israel being obviously a pretty well developed country, and Malawi being different than that. There's different things you learn, different things you face that are challenging. So certainly appreciate your insight on that. And my last question on Israel is, what was your favorite biblical site?
I would probably, there's a couple different things, so that's a hard question to answer. But
Yeah,
if I had to nail down one, it would probably be the Garden Tomb.
yeah,
And I say that because I was a little surprised at how commercialized a lot of the places were and a lot of the sites, and they're all basically national parks now, like all the different not the synagogues, but like the different fortresses and stuff that we got to go see. But the Garden Tomb, they kept it very somber. It
hmm,
was, quiet. We had a different guide for that kind of showed us all the stuff, but it just had a different feeling about it. And I think you could feel the spirit moving there and stuff like that.
hmm.
We did communion there.
Wow.
So it's just a really good experience. And like I said, uh, that place, I think they know the significance of it, and so they
Yeah,
kind of keep it pure and
yeah,
natural and kind of you know for everybody to enjoy.
absolutely. I can only imagine being where Jesus was resurrected has to be a powerful place to stand. So thanks for sharing on that, right? And I think for our listeners too, the impact of international missions is definitely seen in your life, being on 2 mission trips, and specifically just in the way that I've seen you grow, and heard from Drew and Mikey and the staff of how you've grown. It's encouraging. So thanks for sharing on that. And Andrew, my last question for you is: it isn't easy being a follower of Christ in sports. I think especially when it comes to the heavy hours, time demands that come with being an equipment manager, as you've been for most of your professional life. And so, how have you stayed faithful to Christ all these years? And what advice would you give a young professional in equipment on how to do the same?
I would say yes, it is very time consuming, and depending on what level you're at and where you're at, if you're in the NFL level, your main day of work is Sunday, and we know that that's the main church time and stuff like that. So you just have to find your place. And whether that be, daily devotional with yourself, luckily for me, like I said, my dad's a pastor. They stream service online, so I can go back and watch that or catch it live or whatnot. But you just have to make time. And like I said, whether that's a Wednesday night service or a Wednesday night study or, small group or something like that. But you have to find your people. You have to find your group.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it can be tough, but uh you didn't get here on your own, so you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta give the man who allowed it all to happen his due time. So you just have to make it work. And like I said, whether it be 5-10 minutes of reading your Bible in the morning or
Mm,
at night before you go to bed, like you just have to find your time to connect.
absolutely. I love that, Andrew. And I think that's so applicable to really any job in sports, but especially equipment, of making the time to connect. And I think too, personally and in community, is something I want to highlight, because you got to get your personal time as well, where you can learn, soak in the word, be in prayer, but also doing it with other believers is so vital. And your point as well, that working in the NFL, right? Your main day of work is Sunday. A lot of other sports you practice on Sunday. There's not a lot of regulations against that. So finding time outside of that, right? It doesn't have to be Sunday 9 a.m. service. It can be any time of the week when you're walking with the Lord faithfully, when you're with Him, growing in His Word and in that community. So well said. And definitely don't make it legalistic. I always meant to say that, of make it relational and make it real. You don't have to just check the box every day of, I did my 5 minutes of prayer, my 10 minutes of quiet time. Like, make it relational, make it what you want it to be. And the Lord doesn't judge us based on our works, right? Ephesians 2:8-9. We're saved by grace through faith, not by works. So just want to encourage people that as well. Even if you miss a quiet time, God still loves you, right? There's still that relationship. So thanks for sharing on that.
I would, recommend a study Bible, just something that makes you dig a little bit more when you read, like whether it's just that one little prompt they throw up there that, gets you thinking and stuff like that. Because, once you dive into the Word, you don't know what rabbit hole you'll end up in. And that's another one of these, the takeaways from that trip is just now that we've seen it, I feel like we can connect to it differently. And, it makes you want to go back and read about where you were and the different instances and stuff that went on in those places.
That's amazing. And definitely would highly recommend a study Bible. It can be a lifesaver in so many cases. So I love that call out as well. And Andrew, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast today. And for those of you that don't know Andrew, he's someone who's funny to be around, hilarious guy, works his tail off, and cares deeply about everyone he's around. So definitely connect with him. I'm sure he's available to connect. If people did want to connect with you, what's the best mode to connect?
You can hit me up on Twitter, email. Both of those are the same. So my Twitter is Drew EQ, Drew_EQ, and then my email is dreweq@uh.edu. So you can find me on the Houston website, or like I said, Twitter. Might take me a while to reach back out because we start fall camp next week, but at some point I will get back to you.
I appreciate that, Andrew. Thanks for your time, brother, and go Cougs.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
If you want to get involved with Uncommon Sports Group and the mission that we are on to help you navigate the sport industry as followers of Christ, apply for our academy on our website at uncommonsg.org. That's uncommonsg.org. Be sure to catch new episodes of the Uncommon Podcast every other week on Thursdays at midnight Eastern Time. Until next time, we pray that you will strive to be uncommon by glorifying the name of God in whatever you may do. See you next time.